watched my last show, you saw that I popped that sucker clean off out screwing around in the dirt, so... Here we are. I'm going to take it out and inspect it before I buy a new one. That way I know that there's no like extra damage, and that I'm not just walking into a minefield inside the transfer case. That's what I'm doing today. So I'm going to get a socket and start ripping the bolts off that back. Apparently this just pops right off, so we'll see what happens. By the way, this is Daniel with Aired Down, and I'm not always perfect, and this last time I went out, definitely made a mistake. Okay, time for a quick joke. Okay, what does a 4L60E transmission and a crappy walkie-talkie radio have in common? Bad transmission. Okay, follow-up joke. What does a car that has a 4L60E and a radio with no batteries have in common? No transmission. If the joke made you laugh or made you smile or you thought it was clever, go ahead and drop me a subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Go. All of this looks fine. All of that up in there looks fine from here. Well, here it is out on the bench. It's a pretty cool piece. It all looks super beefy from here. And then you flip it upside down, and it does have a pretty small little output shaft. I mean, if we're honest. Despite the break, it stayed together pretty well. Do you remember this punch? Alright, there's an idea of the breakage. And then here is the housing. It looks like the bearings in here are pretty freaking worn out, actually, doesn't it? I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of pitting and worn out junk in that race. This bearing looks worn out, but it's also the bearing that gets used the most, so maybe the rest of the bearings inside the transfer case are fine and I don't need to worry about it. Right here in front of me you see that HD rear output from Atlas came in for the Jeep. I haven't had time to rebuild the rear drive shaft yet, so actually what we're going to do today is pull the drive shaft down and try and figure out how to work with one of these double cardan joints here. There's one last thing to do before we kick today's shenanigans off, and that is now hopefully that got your attention. But I don't want to ever really get political on this channel. You know, it's not what we're here for. But I just found out through a friend of mine on Instagram. He said, hey, did you know that Sierra Nevada gives millions of dollars to the Sierra Club and the Center for Biological Diversity? And I said, no. And also, what does all that mean? Both those companies or nonprofits or organizations or whatever they are spend millions and millions of dollars each year making lawsuits to try and close down OHV areas and general public access areas. So, from now on, I will never buy another Sierra Nevada product ever again in my life. Our exposure to wilderness can't just be David Attenborough talking to you through your TV in your living room. That's just asinine. we have to be allowed to go out there and at least play with it a little bit. I can't really do that even with a straight face. So these are pretty good. I'm just gonna say it. These are pretty cool. I think it makes the most sense to me to try and take this U-joint out first, then we can take the centering yoke out, then we can do whatever we want with this part of the U-joint. There we go. Okay, so now that this is loose, I should be able to hammer the caps off this guy. Whoa! Almost hit myself in the face. I swear I know what I'm doing. Okay, there's one U-joint out. Here's the centering yoke out, and it is a greasable centering yoke, which is important. The greasable ones and the non-greasable ones are not interchangeable on this post. So once you have one, you're stuck with it. Now let's take the rest of the CV down. You know what? Let's remove this grease fitting. This one here, that might just make our lives a little easier. By the way, this is a super old Tom Woods drive shaft, in case you didn't know. It's just been painted and all that a few times. So that was the hard part. I'm just gonna knock this part out real quick since you guys probably know how to do a regular U-joint. Okay, I've got the base, centering yoke out, the naked drive shaft, and then here's the corpse pile of U-joints and crosses. Now it's just time to get parts ordered. Alright, with the drive shaft figured out, what we need and what we don't and all that, let's move our attention to this. Now when you get this unit from Advanced, they basically are saying, hey, you can get this unit, bolt it in, run it. Well, I got mine in the mail, and it looks like the mailman had kind of beat it up a little bit, so listen to this. Hear that? So I got a chunk in that bottom bearing, this bearing right here, and it's pretty nasty. So I'm thinking what I'm going to have to do is rip this unit down to investigate what the heck is going on. And I also know that this unit is supposed to have some run out. It's not supposed to be tight, the shaft in the body. I think it's like 20 thou. If I remember right from a long time ago when I rebuilt a Dana 20 thou. And that might be 20 thou, but we're just going to test it to make sure. Yep, the body's moving 20 thou. Next thing to do is to zap the nut off, pull the yoke off, and drop the shaft and check out the bearing. Okay. Nice. bearing looks okay. I want to swab it off and see if I can find anything. It's kind of a neat opportunity though to see the strength comparison between the one and the other. Here's the new output. Those splines are retarded. Sorry. Those splines are incredible. Here's the old output. And you can just see the difference in splines. I believe this is 26. This is 32. It's just chunky. I love it. Let us see what is wrong. What's wrong with you, girl? And one thing I am noticing, this is not clean. Like, well, it's okay clean. But when I got it, there were like burrs hanging out and some kind of other chunky things in it. So it's very likely that just a chunky piece of aluminum fell in here. Because I don't see anything on the race. The race looks brand new, beautiful. So then our next source for problems is here. So I think what I'm going to do is just blast this bearing off real nasty with some brake cleaner. Then dry everything off so it doesn't surface rust. And then see if we're smooth. I'm going to take this blue crap off of here though. Okay, I blasted this off real good with some brake cleaner. Now let's see if we can't reinstall it. I'll use a little lube on it just in case. Let's see if we can't reinstall it and see if all that chunkiness is gone. Fine, that's where you belong anyway. Seems like we got that ka-chunk out of there. Oh no. Oh man. Also, I'm going to pre-lube the top bearing, now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, all of this is clean and ready for more silicone sealer. I have some here. It's gray and not blue. Now what I'm going to do is run a bunch more here just to give it something to squash down onto that big bead with and shove this gray stuff down into the splines. It feels glass smooth. Torque specs: 32 spline shafts, 150 foot-pounds. Don't judge me. Or judge me, I don't care. But let's see if I can get this pipe wrench to work. Alright, the transfer case is clean and ready to accept this, but we've got a new problem. I've got 2 of these retaining rings and 2 of these bolts for the speedometer housing. Okay, this bomb here lists speedometer retaining clip 1 and speedometer plug 1, but it lists stud bolt and nut right here, 1 and 1. I don't have either of those, so I got 2 retaining rings and 2 bolts and no studs and no nuts. So where the stud goes is we've got this piece here, and you can kind of see they can't run it through like these other normal bolt holes because the speedometer housing's there. So you put a stud in the transfer case and then you work a nut on, and that holds that in. So I need to make my own stud now. I'm going to cut this down right where the thread stops, thread it in with like red Loctite or something, I don't know. Probably silicone sealer because these things are through into the transfer case, the bolt holes. We can take a measurement from here to here, make sure the stud's no taller, throw this on, and then work a nut onto it. So Kind of a pain in the ass, but we'll get it. It's a little hot still, but I've got my stud and a nut to go with it. Now let's take a measurement, get this thing under there, and silicone seal it on. Okay, here we are under the rig. You can see I put that stud in already, and the instructions actually said make it 0.6 of an inch out. Mine's at 0.58, and I even silicone sealed the threads and made sure it's not protruding into the case at all, and it's not. So next, we're ready to put this in, but what they want you to do is smear a light film of silicone sealer around the case before you put it in. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, I've got just a light film of that ultra gray on here. Now, let's put this up on here. I just forgot that you have to wiggle this nut on as you wiggle this on, so out this has to come. Oh, this is going to suck all of the butt. Jeez Louise, that sucks. Okay, so I'm going to put silicone sealer on all these screws. For the same reason, they pass straight through. And I'm going to use liberal amounts because I don't like it when it leaks. And it looks like the bolts are tearing at the sides of the case. So now I got to figure out what the hell to do about that. So, here are the stock bolts. The instructions don't say anything about different bolts, and they don't include bolts, but the machined out circular portions up here are so small that it drags on these shoulders as they come down, on these like hex points. So the unit can't even take the stock bolts. Luckily, I've got these from my ballistic shave cover on my Dana 60 I can throw in. So I'm gonna have to steal these for now and then replace them. Okay, it says to torque all these to 30 foot-pounds. There's really no way I can actually torque this. Alright, my wrist tells me that's 30 foot-pounds. Okay, the next thing would be to install this housing, which holds the speedometer gear. But this has a bunch of junk down in it. The junk will stop this from actually inserting and running correctly. So, another strike against advanced adapters. Oh, jeez, look at that. Come on, advanced. Still doesn't really want to go in and work. Oops, little much there. Look at all the chunks in here. Come on, advanced.
I see it.
Look at that. See that metal flake? Right here. That just fell out of the O-ring groove. These guys are killing me. Okay, let's go stick this thing under the Jeep. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is dump a bunch of oil in this housing for the speedometer here. Ew.
Gross.
And I don't really understand what this numbering is. I just know that for the different diameters you rotate it in. And there's no indication of how to do it, so I figure I can just rotate it, because this clicks into those grooves. So I can just rotate it till it engages and seems like it's making sense. I've rotated this to where it's as close to the, because like it's kind of off center, to where it's the closest setting into that gear. It's the only of the 4 settings where I can feel the inner bit rotate. So that's got to be it, and I'll just slam this keeper down now and we'll just call it good. Alright, here's my old VSS. Oh, I'm super relieved that that just threads right on. Alright, breather hose attached. Yeah, but there it is, all attached. I'm glad I've got the unit. I'm sure it's worth the money. Kind of bummed that I had to do so much work just to put it together, but it's in now and I'm sure it's going to be a good unit. So if you put an advanced adapter's HD output in, I wouldn't suspect that it would be ready to rock and roll right off the floor, that's for sure. I'm back from the Rubicon. I actually just went and run this. I took my daughter. We went and did the Rubicon in 3 days, and it was pretty fun. No muss, no fuss for me. A couple other guys in our group had some serious trouble, but we'll save that for another video. But you can see the screws changed color. I got some slightly longer ones. I wasn't real comfortable with the length of the silver ones that I'd picked out. So, got some longer screws, threw them in. Upon further investigation, the BOM that or the bill of materials from Advanced Adapters says that they were supposed to come with those screws. So I kind of hung them out to dry with the you don't have the right hardware, but also they hung me out to dry by not sending me the hardware from the beginning. So kind of a pain in the butt, but here it is. Obviously the drive shaft's rebuilt. I ran out of time. I was doing my Rubicon prep and trying to get done as fast as I could. So I just slammed all this back together without the camera on. So sorry about that. There's a ton of videos on how to put these things back together, so I'll let you look those up. But anyway, successful. I took this brand new HD output to the con. I never worried about breaking it or nothing. The new drive shaft worked really good, nice and smooth, and everything's cherry. So if you like this kind of content, sorry I truncated this one a little bit, but please like, please subscribe. If the joke made you laugh, please subscribe. And I guess there's one thing left to say, and that's peace out. Go rock crawling. Bye-bye.